Let's talk about Australian democracy. It can feel like this incredibly complex machine with 1,000 moving parts. But what if you had the user's guide? Well, that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to piece that guide together and break down the big ideas to figure out how it all really truly works. So, let's start with the million-dollar question. Who is actually running the show here? I mean, you see the prime minister on the news, you hear about a king on the other side of the planet, but where does the real power actually lie? That is exactly what we are here to unpack. And here's our game plan. We'll start with the nation's original blueprint. Then, we'll map out the architecture of power. After that, we'll see how government shows up in your daily life. And finally, we'll get to the most important part, your rights and your voice. All right, Section 1, a blueprint for a nation. See, before you can even begin to understand the day-to-day politics, you've got to go right back to the start, to the core ideas the entire country was built on. And at the very heart of that blueprint is one powerful word: democracy. It's a pretty simple idea, but it's also kind of radical. The idea that the ultimate power rests with the citizens, not with some ruler. We choose people to make decisions for us, which means the government's power comes directly from us. Now, it's easy to forget that Australia wasn't always one country. Before 1901, it was just 6 separate British colonies, each doing its own thing. Then, in 1901, something huge happened: federation. The colonies all agreed to unite and become a single nation. And in that moment, well, they needed a rulebook. And that is where the Constitution comes in. You can think of it as the nation's official instruction manual. It's the ultimate legal document that lays out the entire structure of government and, just as importantly, sets the limits on what it can and can't do. Okay, so we've got the blueprint. Now for part 2, the architecture of power. Let's look at the actual structure that the Constitution built. A design meant not just to organize power, but to keep it from getting out of control. The core design feature for this is called the separation of powers. And it's a pretty brilliant idea, actually. You split all that power into 3 separate, independent branches. You have the Parliament, which makes the laws, the Executive, which puts them into action, and the Judiciary, which judges the laws. No single group gets total control. Let's zoom in on that first branch, Parliament, the place where laws are made. Australia's system is based on the British Westminster system, and a key feature is that it's bicameral. I know, it's a fancy word, but all it really means is that it has 2 houses or 2 chambers. And these 2 houses have very different jobs. The House of Representatives, or the lower house, is where the government is formed. Whichever party wins the most seats here gets to run the country. But then you have the Senate, the upper house. Its job is to be a check on that power, to represent the states and to review every decision. So, how do we make sure this powerful system stays accountable? Well, it boils down to 2 key principles. First, responsible government. This just means the government has to answer to the Parliament, and, through them, to us. And second, the rule of law. This one is huge. It means that nobody is above the law. Not me, not you, not even the Prime Minister. Okay, so that's all the big picture theory. But how does any of this actually affect you when you walk out your front door? That brings us to Section 3, government in your life. Let's get practical and see who's responsible for what. The thing is, in Australia, you're actually living under 3 different levels of government, all at the same time. You've got the big national federal government, then you've got your state or territory government, and right down at the street level, you have your local council. And this table just lays it out perfectly. The federal government handles the big national stuff. Think defense, immigration, your income tax. Your state government runs the things you use across the state, like hospitals, the police, and public schools. And your local council, they take care of your neighborhood, collecting the bins, looking after the parks, and running the local library. And all of this, every single bit of it, brings us to the most important piece of the whole puzzle. Section 4, your rights, your voice. Because this entire massive structure is designed to serve the citizen. So what's your role in all this? So what's the most powerful tool in your toolbox? It's voting. An election is so much more than a formality. It's the moment the system has to stop and listen. It's the most direct way we as citizens get to hire and, if we need to, fire the people in charge. But, your participation doesn't just stop at the ballot box. A healthy democracy relies on all of us having these fundamental freedoms: the freedom to speak your mind, to gather and protest, to believe in what you choose, and to move freely around the country. These rights are what let you be a part of public life every single day.
We've talked about changing governments by voting, but what if you want to change the most fundamental law of all? What if you want to change the Constitution itself? Well, you can't just pass a normal law. It needs a very special process.
And that special process is called a referendum. It's a pretty rare and amazing moment where a huge decision isn't left to the politicians. A proposed change to the Constitution is put to a national vote, and every single citizen gets a direct say, yes or no. It's about as pure as democracy gets. But here's the catch. Passing a referendum is deliberately difficult. It's not enough to just win the popular vote. You need what's called a double majority. That means you need more than half the voters across the whole country to say yes, and you need a majority of voters in a majority of the states, at least 4 out of 6, to also say yes. It's a really high bar, and it's designed to make sure any change has massive support across the whole country. Which brings us right back to where we started. From the way Parliament is set up to the way we change the Constitution, the whole system is built on this one core idea of responsible government, that the people in power are ultimately accountable to the Parliament, and through the Parliament, they are directly accountable to the people, to you. So there you have it. From the huge ideas of federation right down to your local council picking up the bins, it's all one giant interconnected system, a system designed by its citizens for its citizens. And that really only leaves one question, doesn't it? What part will you play?